Hey there, welcome to this week's live. And today we're going to do things a little bit differently since last week we finished up the How to Be Great in Intuitive Eating at Intuitive Eating in Midlife series. And so this week we're going to do a little bit of Q&A. So as I mentioned before, we were doing free drop-in office hours on Fridays during the month of January to support you in your intuitive eating journey during National Dieting Month, January. And there were some really great questions that came from folks that dropped into those free sessions on Fridays. And if you missed the opportunity to come to one of those free drop-in office hours, don't worry, they will be back probably sometime later this spring. And I just wanted to share with you some of the questions that folks asked as they came into these drop-in office hours, because I think they're questions that I hear a lot, either on discovery calls or with my clients in session. And I thought, if they're asking them, you're probably asking them too. So why not dive into them? So we're going to talk about that today. And just as a reminder, if you've missed any of that series on how to be great at intuitive eating in midlife, you can get all the recordings of those episodes on the Savor Food and Body podcast. And you can get a recording of this today. So if you're watching it live on the Savor Food and Body YouTube channel or Alpine Nutrition Facebook page, and you're like, I gotta run, I gotta get to work, I gotta get the kids onto their thing, and don't have time to listen to these answers to these questions today, don't worry, you can catch it, the replay of this on the Savor Food and Body podcast. And there's a link directly to the podcast right below. It's also available on all major podcast players. So let's dive right into these questions. And the first one, I think, is a really great and has a lot of side conversations to it. And so I want to use a disclaimer here too, in that these questions, some of them, they could take a whole session to unpack and to understand, and that's okay. So I'm going to give you my very best short, succinct answers. And if you have more follow-up questions to these, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can always do that by going to my website, alpinenutrition.org, and click the contact link at the top of the page. So I'm happy to continue these conversations with you. So the first question is, what's the difference between structured eating and dieting? So I hear this a lot, particularly from my clients that come in that said, dieting wasn't all that bad. Yeah, it was a little rigid, but it also told me what to eat. And so I didn't really have to think about it. And so that is one of the benefits of dieting that is worth acknowledging. And we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that. When you get a list of foods to eat and foods not to eat, and sometimes a meal plan that goes with it or a grocery shopping list that goes with it, that makes eating easier. But what I wanted to highlight with you, and what I did with this individual that asked the question too, is the difference between dieting and structured eating, as she termed it, is when we eat something that, say, is on, when we're dieting, when we eat something that is on the don't eat list, then we feel like shit about ourselves. Then we start down that shame spiral, that food guilt spiral, and all of that. Structured eating can be more compassionate in that I'm planning for myself what I want to eat today, this week, what I want to grocery shop for. So I make sure that I have food on hand so that I can respect my body by feeding it regularly and consistently. So within intuitive eating, that key principle of body respect, both body respect and gentle nutrition, which we talked about in the fifth episode of the How to Be Great at Intuitive Eating series, those two are tightly wound together. And what this person was calling structured eating can fit within that body respect and gentle nutrition piece. So I hope that that helps kind of clarify. One, what it really boils down to is morality. When we have dieting and we have eat and don't eat food lists, we're tying morality to that because those lists are typically named good foods, bad foods, healthy foods, unhealthy foods. And so then we internalize, like, if I eat on either one of those lists, I am being good, I am good, or I am being bad, or I am bad, or unhealthy, or whatever it is. Structured eating from an intuitive eating perspective is more of, I have a plan, rough plan. It's not hard and fast. I can be flexible during the week as my life flows throughout the week, but I have some sort of plan to make sure that I have the food that I need and that I want, and so that I can feed myself regularly. So that's my answer to that one. Again, love to hear your thoughts on that either in the comments below, wherever you're watching this, or like I said, hit me up in the contacts on my website, alpinenutrition.org. Okay, the next question. Eating whatever I want doesn't mean eating potato chips, does it? What if I eat the whole bag of potato chips? Now, this was a little bit unique in that it was potato chips for this person. And 9 times out of 10 with my clients, I don't know what it is, but it's tortilla chips. But chips, whatever. Doesn't really matter what kind it is. And my take on this and an intuitive eating perspective on this is, yes, it does mean eating the potato chips, eating the tortilla chips. Eating whatever you want literally means full permission with all foods. You can have whatever you want is on the table. Now, if you've someone who has been dieting and restricting those foods over a long period of time, and or they were on that list of don't eat, and so there's a lot of morality wrapped around those foods, anytime that you have access to those foods, you're finally going to allow yourself to have them. Yeah, you're probably going to eat more than you think you should, quote unquote, should, or that even feels comfortable. Because there's a part of your brain that goes, oh my gosh, she's giving me this amazing, delicious, super satisfying food. I love it. And she might not give it to me again. So I better get it all now. Finish that bag. That's one part, excuse me, of the conversation. The other part of the internal conversation is, if I finish the bag now, they'll all be gone and I can start over again tomorrow. I can start restricting again tomorrow, or I can start being good and getting back to my good foods list. So the way that you say stop finishing the bag of potato chips, or stop finishing the bag of tortilla chips or M&Ms, that's been another common one in my practice, is to practice allowing yourself full permission with those foods, meaning they are in your house, they are in your pantry, and practicing to allow yourself mental full permission in that I can have this food, it's just chips, it's no big deal, I'm not a bad person for eating them, and explore the difficult feelings that come up with that when you do eat more than you think you quote unquote should have, or that feels comfortably full. What we're talking about here, really from the evidence-based standpoint, is we're talking about practicing habituation. When you practice habituation, meaning you're habitually around all of these foods, or all the foods that you previously set off limits, they become less sexy. They don't have that compulsion and that allure to them of like, I gotta have them all now, I gotta finish it all now, I gotta get back on track tomorrow. Like, that stress just goes by the wayside. And that's what we know from the evidence around the practice of habituation. So that's that question. Let's go on down. How can intuitive eating help me with emotional eating? So this kind of ties into the potato chip question, in that with intuitive eating, the very fundamentals of intuitive eating is that it's built upon what I call compassionate curiosity. So if you notice that you're turning towards food more consistently as that emotional coping tool, remember we talked about in the Intuitive Eating for Midlife series, we talked about how to design an emotional coping toolbox. I believe that was in episode 3 or 4. Go check that out. And if you find, gosh, I feel like every time I'm stressed, I'm reaching for the potato chips. Every time I feel like I'm burned out, I'm so exhausted by the end of the day, I'm reaching for the desserts, the sugars, the ice cream, the cookies, whatever, and a Netflix series. If you find yourself in that place, again, to remind you, you are an emotional eater. We are all emotional eaters. Humans are emotional eaters. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if we're always turning to that one coping tool and food being that one coping tool for the emotions that we're experiencing, that tool's not going to be as effective anymore. And you're probably going to have a stomach ache to go with it, which can trigger more shame and guilt food spirals. So, how can intuitive eating help you with that? Intuitive eating, in that compassionate curiosity perspective, asks you, invites you to hold up, take a pause, back it up. What went on in your day today that has you reaching unconsciously for the chips, for the sugar foods, whatever the food is for you, it doesn't really matter. What went on during your day today that has put you in this place of feeling some emotional distress? Just unpack that. Just stop, explore, and become aware of what you're emotionally feeling, how that physically feels in your body. So, what we're going to get into in another series later is we're going to apply the Savor strategies, which I use in my practice all the time, to helping you become a better intuitive eater, become a more consistent intuitive eater. And one of those strategies is awareness. So, as you practice awareness of, like, oh, I'm feeling this in my body, that's when then you can start to realize, is food going to support that emotion, or do I need to do something else? Maybe food supports in the short term because it distracts us. There's different tastes and textures going on in our mouth, but it doesn't do the job of actually helping you move through the emotion. It just distracts you from the emotion itself. So you might need other tools to reach for, whether that's the journaling, going for a walk in nature, listening to some music, my favorite, laying on the floor and having the floor just hold the weight of the world for you. Whatever it is, again, there's more suggestions back in that episode 3 or 4 of the How to Be Great at Intuitive Eating series. So let yourself off the hook if you are an emotional eater. We are all emotional eaters. And I want to invite you to explore what's going on with those emotions. Where are they coming from? Where are they rooted from? And is food going to be the best tool for you in the moment? Sometimes it is, but it can't be the tool all the time, because then it's not going to be as effective. Okay, what should I eat to be healthy now that I'm in perimenopause? So this is a super great question. And I learned a long time ago, as I was transitioning out of my disordered relationship with food and my body, in that not one way of eating can work for your entire life. And as someone who had been a vegan athlete and was kind of on my high horse about being this vegan athlete, I was like, and all of a sudden I started experiencing severe GI issues, and I couldn't eat the high fiber foods of that is common in a vegan diet. And that's when the light bulb went on and went, oh, like, our eating has to change and ebb and flow no matter what stage of life we are in. So this, I think, is even more important as we transition in through perimenopause into menopause in this whole season of midlife, that we have an opportunity to think about that body respect and gentle nutrition piece even more tightly together, but not in a diety way. So hear me out when I say this. So when if you're over 40, you're experiencing symptoms of perimenopause, I want to invite you to think about adding versus subtracting. And by the nature of adding, there may be times where some foods that you used to always go to, they do kind of fall by the wayside because you're getting more of what you need from what you've added. But the focus isn't there. The focus is to the adding, not to the subtracting. So that's point number one when it comes to eating for nutritional well-being in midlife. So from an adding perspective, we might be adding more high fiber foods. So more whole grains, fruits and vegetables, legumes, soy products, if that's something that you enjoy. The legumes and the soy products too, by the way, are high in phytoestrogens, which may help if you're experiencing hot flashes or night sweats or some moodiness too. So So again, thinking about what we're adding. If we're adding more fiber to our daily eating routine and adding more fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds, beans, legumes, soy, that sort of thing. The other piece that we can think about in terms of areas to add or bring more mindfulness to is in protein. So we don't need to get crazy with adding protein powders and bars and all of that, or do we need to get crazy about adding a specific grams of protein and getting really nitty gritty? But I really love how my friend and colleague Jen Salapuber, who is known as the menopause.nutritionist on social media on Instagram, and she explains how with protein, we have our main characters and we have our supporting characters. And as someone who did theater in high school, that really resonated with me. So, for example, for a main cast of our main character of protein, that's our meat, our fish, chicken, eggs, soy could be there as well. And then when we have our supporting characters of protein, that can be our whole grains, our beans and legumes, our nuts and seeds. And in midlife, it can be beneficial again for protecting our metabolism, protecting our building our muscles, increasing strength and flexibility, as well as supporting any fluctuations with blood sugar. We're going to get into that in a second. And so if we think about increasing our mindfulness around protein and adding. So at any meal or snack, having a main character of protein and also having a supporting character of protein. Cheese is also a supporting character of proteins. So those of you that are cheese fans. So again, we're focusing on the adding. We're not worrying about the calories of it. We're not worrying about the grams of it. We don't need to get that nitty gritty. We're just focusing on, do I have some protein at my meal and snack? And do I have a main character? Do I have a supporting character? Particularly at meals, you've got you've got both. And at a snack, you've got at least a supporting character of protein. We went over that a little bit too in episode 5 of the series of how to be great at intuitive eating in midlife. So moving on, this is another really great one too when it comes to hunger and fullness. So I see this a lot in my practice. And the question was, I can't feel my hunger, but I can easily feel too full. How do I know when I should stop eating? So first of all, that word should, like we get this idea of like, there should be a point where I stop eating. And when you've come from uh, a long history of dieting, your should is the serving that was in front of you is over. You should stop eating. You shouldn't go look for any more food. And it's not asking you to check in like, well, are you satisfied? Are you full? Are you still hungry? Where are you in terms of that hunger, satisfaction, fullness spectrum, which we talked about in episode 2 and 3 in the series, last series. So when I look at this, definitely it's completely normal to have those hunger and fullness cues shut down, especially under times of stress, burnout, illness, trauma, or unprocessed trauma. So that's really normal. So know if that's something you're experiencing, you have experienced in your life, there's a lot of stress and a lot of upheaval that goes on in midlife. And if that's making it hard for you to hear hunger cues, especially subtle hunger cues, you're not broken. It's just par for the course. On top of that, what I often find with folks is that if we don't start eating when we're at least subtly hungry or feeling any hunger, it can be really easy then to feel overfull quickly. And again, there's no shame in that. That's just kind of an observational thing that I notice that happens. So how do we work on that? Is starting to be more intentional with what is going on in our bodies. Again, that awareness piece of the Savor strategies, becoming aware of, yeah, I'm feeling a little zingy today, like a little anxious, a little stressed out. So I'm not going to feel my basic biological cues because your body at a low grade way is running from this bear, doesn't have time for you to stop and have a snack. So it's going to shunt those signals of hunger off. So, how do we get around that, or how do we support you still maintaining normal hunger cues, or at least the response in your body, even if you're not physically feeling them, is it might be helpful for you to set a gentle, peaceful reminder on your phone or notifications on your computer at work, whatever, to say, check in with yourself every 2, 3 hours. Hey, how are you feeling? Are you feeling hungry? How long's it been since you last ate or had a snack? Do you need some water? Do you need to get up and stretch and move your body a little bit? So these mindfulness reminders are just that. They're mindfulness as a whole, not just hunger. But what I find what happens with folks is as they practice that more, they start to notice like, oh yeah, I can feel hunger. I just didn't realize that was hunger that I was feeling. Or these mindfulness reminders help you check in with that. Yeah, I'm feeling a little climb on the walls today. Okay, I need to take some deep breaths, or I need to get out of my work environment and walk around the block, or whatever that is, in order to kind of bring that stress level down. And when they do that, then like, oh yeah, actually I could have a snack now. It's been a while since I ate or ate enough to feel satisfied. So that's my response to what do you do if you're having a hard time feeling hunger and you have no problem feeling over fullness. So just get curious with yourself. Again, it's that compassionate curiosity that will get you through most things in life. This one is also a really common one. I hear this a lot. The person says, I've gained like X pounds, we'll just say, out of nowhere after I turn 40. Will intuitive eating help me lose this weight? So that is always the kicker with intuitive eating, right? Like we've done all the diets, and we know that diets promise all of this weight loss or feeling different in your body, usually related to the weight loss. And so we come into intuitive eating going, okay, well, this is just a new program and plan, right? Like it'll do the same thing, it'll help me lose weight. And I think we're particularly vulnerable about this after 40 because as perimenopause is starting to take hold, we are seeing some changes in our weight, or at least weight distribution. And so it's a pretty sensitive topic for sure. So, while I can't promise that practicing intuitive eating will help you lose weight, that would not be ethical to do. I can honestly say, I don't know. We don't know. When you sit down and you practice intuitive eating consistently, if you were someone who was more over restricting your food, be that amount, types of foods, and as you start to lift that restriction and start practicing intuitive eating, you're probably going to experience some weight gain, only because all of a sudden your body had been in kind of this a little bit of a shunted metabolism, and saying like, she's constantly like just shy of starving all the time. So anything she puts in me, I better hang on to. I better not burn it off because I don't know when I'm going to get fed enough again. It's a very oversimplified explanation, but that serves our purposes for here. On the other hand, if you were someone, say, that has been leaning on food as your one emotional coping tool for a very long time, practicing intuitive eating, getting more in touch with how do those emotions show up in your body, how do they feel in your body, broadening your emotional coping toolbox, you might be someone that sees your weight drop a bit because you're not asking food to do the therapy work all the time. So I've seen clients on both sides of the spectrum. But again, the honest answer is, well, if intuitive eating will help you lose weight, we don't know. Because we don't know as you come into intuitive eating what your relationship with food has been like. We're going to work on that no matter what side of that spectrum you were on, the restriction side, or maybe even the binge eating side. We're going to work on that. But where your body is actually going to settle in terms of weight loss, we don't know. Also, because in midlife, we've got all these hormone fluctuations that are going to go on too, that independent of food are going to affect weight and weight distribution. So, again, compassionate curiosity. As you come into practicing intuitive eating, in midlife, I want to invite you to have the motivation and the goals of, I want to feel better. I want to feel better in and about my body. And when that is the goal, the front and center goal, intuitive eating will help you do that 100% of the time. And it's still okay to say, and as I feel better in and about my body, it'd be great if I lost weight too. That's still okay to say. It's fine. Intuitive eating is not anti weight loss by any means, but it is asking a person to explore, what does losing weight mean to you? How does that align with your values? How does it align and within your experience of the culture as a whole, which we live in a pretty fat phobic, weight centric culture. So that's why it's not unreasonable to say, like, I want to lose weight in doing this too. And it's more the motivations with the how do we do that that make intuitive eating different from weight loss plans. Okay, again, that's another one that could go a lot of different directions, a lot of different angles, and a lot of different nuances with. And so if you were in that place of, I really want to lose weight, but I really also want to do intuitive eating, definitely feel free to get in touch and contact me, share your story. We could talk about it together over a discovery call if that's something you want to do, which discovery calls are free. It's just a meet and share your story and see how I could help you. And so you can do that by going to the website, alpinenutrition.org, and clicking the contact button at the top. So this last one that I want to share with you, it's a little bit longer, so I didn't type it out in the notes below wherever you're watching this, but it's also a really common one. And it really speaks to why I love working with women in midlife. And I think it's a really important population to spend some time with. So this person came into the drop-in office hours and said, I never had issues with my weight until I turned 45. I always ate what I wanted, enjoyed exercise, and my weight stayed stable. Now that I'm in my late 40s, I see my weight creeping up. I have teenagers and I don't want them to get the message that weight gain is bad, but I'm really struggling with body acceptance. This person also went on to say she really struggled with the messages around like body positivity and body love that we see so much on social media. And while I'm all for those, I think it gets a little bit more complicated in midlife because there are physical changes that are happening with your body that you have no control over. And so it can feel a little bit pacifying to say like, oh, just accept your body and just love your body when you're in this midlife season. So what I wanted to mention about this individual and this question, it wasn't really presented as a question. It was more just like, hey, this is what's happening to my body now that I'm in my mid 40s. I've never had to deal with this before. And so she wasn't someone that has been dieting, but because we live in this culture that as soon as her body started changing in a quote unquote negative way, or as a way that's viewed as negative in our culture, her mind immediately went to, I should start dieting. I should like figure this out. I shouldn't be gaining the weight. My body shouldn't be changing. My body shouldn't be aging. But then with these, she has three daughters. And with these three teenagers, late teens, she's like, but what mess am I going to pass on to them? So that's why midlife is a brilliant time to come and explore intuitive eating and practice intuitive eating, because there are there are younger women, younger girls all around you, whether you have kids or not, that are picking up on what is your relationship with food in your body, even if you don't think about it that way. And it doesn't matter whether it's your own kids or nieces or kids at a school, if you're a teacher or you're a coach, or you work with kids in a like community setting, like music, theater, whatever that is, whatever hobbies you enjoy, younger girls and women are always going to be listening. And they're always going to be listening because they're trying to sort out, okay, the culture, my friend's culture says this, but then I'm around my friend's mom, she says this, and then I'm around these older women that say this. And honestly, disordered eating and body shame, it's generational. But I firmly believe that women in midlife have the opportunity to stop that generational cycle, because even if their moms are still alive or even their grandmothers are still alive, at midlife, you can see what those older women's relationship with food and body has been. And you can make the choice if you want to follow in that path or not, you want to do something different. And you have the power that these younger generations, they are still thinking you're pretty cool, some aspects. And they're looking up to you. So in a way, like we always talk about midlife is the sandwich generation. And that's true. And it's the sandwich generation that can change whether disordered eating and eating disorders happen for future generations. So I really want to applaud that woman that came in and shared that story with us. And of course, we strategized what that could maybe look like for her. Again, based on everything that you and I have been talking about over the last few weeks. And so, but I really want to plant that seed with you that if you are a woman in midlife, I want to invite you to start exploring intuitive eating, start exploring body respect. If body acceptance and body love feels way too far out there as you're watching your midlife body change, then settle in with body respect and understand what that means for you. Start to learn more about gentle nutrition or compassionate nutrition, as I like to call it, for yourself. And as you're doing that, people around you are going to pick up on that. Especially that younger generation is going to pick up on that. And so if you have any more questions about this, and as I said, this is my life's work. I love working with this population in order to stop that generational cycle of disordered eating. Please definitely get in touch. I'd love to hear your story anyway, whether we're working together or we're just talking about like, hey, food and body and midlife is kind of a wild ride. I'd love to hear from you. So there, like I said, there are a couple ways that we can get in touch. You can go to alpinenutrition.org and hit that contact information. You can also get on my weekly emails. So I send out emails every week. So at the beginning of the month, they're a little bit more robust. They've got recipes and resources to them. And the weekly emails that come up, there's usually a podcast episode or one other resource that I think can benefit you in your intuitive eating and midlife journey or your journey towards undieting your life, whatever that may be. So I think they're pretty helpful resources. And you can always reply to any of those emails and say, hey, Amanda, I've like got this going on. I would love to answer your questions. And love to support you in that way. So you can get on that email list by clicking the link in the bottom wherever you're watching this, and we will stay in touch that way too. So thanks again for being here, for watching. Those of you that are watching it live, remember you can always get the replay of this on the Savor Food and Body podcast. And until next week, I wish you a delicious week savoring food and your body. Take care.